Hi everybody, welcome back to Ajay Drives. My name is Ajay Sharma and today is a very special video to me because what I'm going to be shooting today is this. This is a Creta 2015 model, but it's not just any Creta 2015. This is the one that I owned for 6 total years, and it's been a very special car to me, very important. And today I'm going to review it. I'm going to give you a full-fledged ownership review of what it is to own a car like this for 6 years, and what are the problems it gave me, how the interior is, how the exterior is, kind of a full walk around. And then I'll also give it kind of a, I'll let you know all of the maintenance details of everything I've done in terms of what I've changed, what the maintenance costs were across all of these years and all. Another thing I'd like to mention is that this is the Creta 1.6 CRDI. This is the best engine you can get this car in because it was the famed 1.6 liter common rail direct injection motor making 126 horsepower and about 265 Newton meters of torque. This was the engine to get, and I can tell you after driving 80,000 kilometers in this car, feels brand new, feels butter smooth. It does have a lot to do with the fact that I really maintain my cars with great efficiency, but apart from that, it's such a smooth engine to drive right from the get-go, and it doesn't feel a day old in terms of aging. It feels really good to drive even right now. And I'd like to start off by showing you the front end of this car. The front end of this car is truly one of the things that got me most excited. Back in 2015, Hyundai really knew what they were doing with their fluidic designs. And as you can see, it's got a great front grille. It's got about 3 slats and it's got a huge Hyundai logo in the middle. Again, looks very good. It's got a nice fluidic design going across the bonnet, and that kind of meets the sidelines as well, and I'll show you that in a little bit of time. Back in 2015, this is really one of the things that caught my attention the most. If you look at this car, it has a timeless design. Truly, Hyundai knew what they were doing with their fluidic designs, and it looks timeless and like it's gonna look good forever. And that's one of the things I kind of hated about the new Creta. It just doesn't look like this. It's very subjective design. I personally do not like it at all. That's why I never went to the next Creta. I went to the Kia Seltos instead. But this was, I think, where they got the design absolutely right bang on. This is one of the best designs I've seen for this car come out. And again, it looks nice. It's got a nice fluidic sculpture to it, and it's what caught my attention the most back in 2015. Now I'm going to talk about a little bit more about the design. So what I've done is I've also made the roof completely blacked out, and that's something that I did after I bought the car, and then Hyundai kind of came out with its own dual tone colors and everything. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the side profile of this car, and in the side profile you can see it's got great 16-inch wheels to complement its design. It's got a nice fluidic line going across the entire side of the body. Looks very nice, and honestly this shade of red has always been my favorite for this car, and I think this is the color it suits best in. Definitely. As you can see, even back in 2015 they had request sensors on the door. Of course, they only had it on the driver's door, they didn't have it on any other door, but in 2015 having this ability to have a request sensor was a big deal in itself. I'd like to move to the back now. Now, moving to the back of this car, this was the part of the design that wasn't always my favorite, but kind of grew on me over time. I do really like the fact that they placed the Hyundai logo in the middle with nothing else to complement it. I think that's a really good part about the rear design. I also think the chrome garnish on top of the number plate looks really nice. And one other thing, and this is something Hyundai has excelled in for many years, the sensors being integrated into the cladding here looks great. And even the camera that's integrated into the number plate is hidden away from view, and everybody knows this. Hyundai and Kia make the best cameras out there. So this is a really high resolution camera, and I'll show you that once we're in the interior itself. So now I'm going to be talking about the interior of this car, and honestly, another thing that Hyundai did so well back in the day was make beautiful interiors. Yes, it's a lot of hard plastics in here, but definitely all of those hard plastics have really fared well over the last 6 years. Nothing's faded, nothing's ever gone bad. They don't rattle, they don't creak, no problems there at all. And apart from that, you may notice that I have changed the infotainment system in here. And with the infotainment system, the story was that I bought this car back in 2015. In 2015, Hyundai hadn't added Apple CarPlay or Android Auto to their infotainment systems. And the great part is this car, this particular Android system that I've put in here comes with wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. So I don't actually watch movies or anything in this. I just wanted a big screen, and at the time when I was really replacing the screen in this, it came only as an Android screen. I couldn't find any better aftermarket screen at that point. Apart from that, automatic climate control. I would like to mention this as much as possible. 6 years, I've done about 80,000 kilometers in this car. This car has never had a problem with the AC. The air conditioning on this car works perfectly. The climate control is so well done. Of course, there's the regular maintenance, changing the AC air filter and things like that, but otherwise, the air conditioning has given me no problems whatsoever. Apart from that, I really like this gauge cluster, but I do have a couple of qualms with it. The fact that even in 2015, it was not a big deal to show somebody the average kilometers per liter, so the fuel consumption. That is not there in this gauge cluster, and I cannot see the distance to empty either. All I can see is the digital speed, the engine temperature, the fuel gauge, the trip, and the total odometer reading. But apart from that, I really like how they have big dials for both the tachometer and the speedometer. It looks really, really nice. And while we're on that topic, another thing I'd like to mention is this was the top end car back in 2015. It has the request sensors, it has keyless entry and go, it's the SX Plus. So I think there was one more SX optional that came, I think, a bit later, if I'm not wrong, because this was the top end when we had purchased it. So I'm sure the SX optional came a little bit later, and that actually gave you a different screen in the gauge cluster with distance to empty and average fuel consumption. But at this point, they hadn't given all of that information. Apart from that, I really also like the steering mounted controls. They fared really well over the years. They still feel really tactile and very, very nice to feel. Again, there's never been an issue with using these, and they fared really well over the years. Similarly, I'd like to talk about the door pads. In the door pads, you can see there's just great space for cup holders, bottles, 2 liter, 1 liter bottles. I've put all of that in here, and it's never moved around, rattled, squeaked. It's a very, very good door pad, very well designed. Another part is, this is something Hyundai and Kia have been doing for years together, even back in 2015. Out of the 4 window controls, only one of them is illuminated, and that's the one for the driver's door. I like where they placed the rear window controls. It's up here and it's nicely distinctive, so it was never difficult to change any of the mirror controls, the exterior rear view mirror controls. Closing it, opening it, quite the easy task, never an issue at all. So that's everything about the interior. I've enjoyed this interior a lot over the years. It's never caused any issues whatsoever. There were some maintenance problems that I had to deal with every now and then, but I'll get to that when we're driving the car. All right, so the next thing I'm going to be talking about is the back seat space in this car. And with the back seat of this car, I've never actually had an issue. Again, I've kept this particular seat to my height. I'm 6'2", and in this seat, I'm extremely comfortable. Yes, there is a little bit of knee touching going on over here, but it's not uncomfortable in any way, and it really makes for great space for the rear occupants. Apart from that, it's got great cup holders in its rear armrest as well. So in here, you can see the armrest is at this point in a horizontal orientation. They have the cup holders, and it looks really nice. Honestly, I have changed the seat covers of this car to beige, and that's why this car looks very airy when you're sitting inside of it, and it feels very airy on the inside. Apart from that, the rear headrests are also adjustable, and they are very comfortable. So sitting in this back seat has never been a problem in that sense. It also has rear climate controls, and the rear climate vents work really well. They do a very good job cooling the cabin from the back. And you've also got a 12-volt socket here for any charging appliances or anything of such sorts. Again, these were things back in 2015 were extremely sort of attractive when it comes to buying a car, and this really did a very good job giving you all the features. Typical of Hyundai, they do give you all the features in the world, but the fact that they did that so well, it was executed very well in this specific car. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is the driving experience, and that's where I'm going to tell you everything, including maintenance, including all of the different bills I've paid, everything that I've ever changed in this car, and just in general how it is to drive this car. All right, so now I'm going to be talking about all of the things in terms of driving this car. And while I'm driving this car, we'll also quickly go over all of the different maintenance that I've ever done to this car, how I feel about the engine, what are the different situations this car has put me in, and so much more. So to start off with, this is one of the nicest engines to live with. As I said, I've done about 80,000 kilometers in this engine. That's no small amount. That's definitely enough to know every single thing about the car. And in those 80,000 kilometers, I can tell you this engine does not feel a single day old. It is such a smooth engine. It's never caused me any issues whatsoever. And it is mighty powerful. 126 horsepower and 265 Newton meters of torque may not sound much in today's day and age, but this thing still pulls quite heavily. And at the time, I think this was the only SUV that was able to do 0 to 100 in about 10.5 seconds. And that is no slouch in any circumstances. So this is definitely a fast car, and more importantly, a very reliable car. So there is a little bit of turbo lag that you can feel in this car. Again, it's not pronounced. It's nothing that's ever going to stop you from driving, whether it's in the city or on the highway, or cause any problems in that sense at all. Now, a couple of things about driving dynamics. This thing's transmission is butter smooth. You're never gonna have an issue when it comes to actually switching gears and moving between the 6 gears that it has. What is somewhat of a problem sometimes is the fact that it has a very long travel in the clutch. So the clutch is definitely, it's okay to use. It's not very heavy, it's not very light, but it does have a lot of travel. So you have to be wary about not half clutching the car all the time. Now, apart from that, it pulls so cleanly. You can see right now, third gear, it's above 2000 RPM, and it pulls so cleanly, no matter what kind of traffic you put the car through. So definitely a very, very joyful car to drive. Now, when it comes to maintenance, I have done about, I would say, 15 to 18 services of this car already. Now, the reason for that is not because I was going in for timely maintenances every 10,000 kilometers. Obviously, at that point, it would have only done 8 services. But 2 to 3 things that constantly go bad in the car. One is the brake pads. The brake pads are something that I have always had to change in this car, and I change that pretty much every 10,000 kilometers, which is not good. It's not a good thing to change brake pads every 10,000 kilometers. And again, it's not something that caused me too much of an issue, because I know I am a little bit more of an aggressive driver, but 10,000 kilometers is still too little for life in terms of brake pads. And if not 10,000, I probably changed it every 15,000. Apart from that, the clutch has been changed on this car once. And apart from that, there has been one change for the lower control arms in this car. So those are the main expenses in terms of the things outside of regular services that I had to change. Now, in terms of regular services, and this is a price that usually people get upset when they hear, but every 10,000 kilometers, when you give this car for service, it will cost you about 13 to 14,000 rupees to service. And that includes nothing but regular oil change, air filters, AC filters, oil filters, diesel filters, whatever that might be. So in those regular services, about 13 to 14,000 rupees for every service is what it costed me. Apart from that, brake pads used to always cost more. I have changed the rotors in this car 2 times as well. So it's the brakes have just been very weird in this car from the very beginning. It's never caused me an issue because they're very, very, very progressive and well performing brakes. They just go bad every now and then. Apart from that, as you can see, I have changed the infotainment system of the car. That costed me about 30K. And apart from that, I've also changed all of the speakers in this car, and that is something that did me very well. The speakers that came with this car were not the best, and when I changed the speakers, I went for a crazy setup. So I have 2 amplifiers, I have a subwoofer, and I have a total of 8 speakers in the entire car, and that is all Infinity. Everything in this car is Infinity, including the amplifiers, except for the subwoofer. The subwoofer is the only one in this car that is by JBL, and the subwoofer does really well. It gives a very nice thumping noise, but those are all aftermarket changes that I made. Apart from that, I also have done engine decarbonization once, so I thought that was something that people do, and I did that once as well. Apart from that, nothing major to report off. Yes, it is a high maintenance car, but it also is a high performing car, so you got to keep that in mind. It's just been a joy to live with this car, and I would recommend it to anybody who is out there and can still get their hands on a Creta with this 1.6 liter diesel engine, or for that matter, any Hyundai car with this 1.6 liter diesel engine. It is a joy to drive. It is so reliable, and it never feels old, no matter when you drive it. And complementing that is the looks of this car, the lovely interior, and there's nothing to beat it. I totally love this car. I always have, and I would recommend this to anybody and everybody who is looking for this car either in the second-hand market or still has some way of getting it new. It's a lovely car, and I would never recommend anyone to let go of it. Of course, the reasons I changed the car were because I wanted to buy a car of my own. This was originally a car of my father's, and I wanted to buy a car of my own, which is why I bought the Kia Seltos. But apart from that, I actually love this car and would have never let go of it otherwise. So that is the conclusion of this video. I just wanted to let you know about the ownership about the car and how it was to live with this car for 80,000 kilometers in 6 years. It's just been a joy.